Yeah.
This is the house of God.
Anti-ICE rioters storming a church in St. Paul, Minnesota, disrupting services for those practicing their faith, shouting accusations that the pastor is working with ICE. You can see here in this video, churchgoers visibly upset that their worship service was interrupted by an angry mob. We have yet to see Governor Tim Walz or Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey issue a public response to the St. Paul church mob. But earlier yesterday, Mayor Frey went ahead and stoked the fire, calling those riots inspiring.
This is not about safety. What this is about is coming into our city by the thousands and terrorizing people simply because they're Latino or Somali. And people in Minneapolis are speaking up. They're speaking up peacefully. They're standing up for their neighbors. And this is not just about resisting Trump. This is about loving and caring for the people that call this city home. And it's been inspiring.
Kaylee, I find that sickening. I found nothing peaceful about that. There was nothing loving about that. And I am shocked that that mayor would call it anything but what it is, which is, by the way, also an unconstitutional, unlawful violation of those worshipers' civil rights and just a sickening display of cowardice.
Completely. I mean, I was in church yesterday and I was thinking this morning, you know, I endeavor as a mother to keep my kids quiet because you're reverent. You are in the place of God. And, you know, little Avery that will let out her cry. And I try my best to just, you know, take her out the door or not disturb others. And I remember my pastor saying, I love the sound of crying. It's beautiful. It's new life. And, you know, being very accommodating. But I was thinking of that, and then I'm thinking about these individuals who just chose to go in and in this irreverent, disgusting, irresponsible, and to your point, unconstitutional manner, interrupted those around them. Apparently, the church emptied. So people who went to see the face of Jesus were essentially run out of the church. And the FACE Act, which is what the DOJ has cited, I think is very interesting here. This is the act that was used to prosecute those pro-life protesters, those peaceful protesters under the Biden era. Well, the second provision also protects houses of worship. It says clearly physical obstruction is that physical obstruction in an attempt to intimidate or interfere. Any person lawfully exercising their First Amendment right of freedom of religion can be prosecuted. Not only that, Harmeet Dillon just came out and said there might have been a racial component because there was a yelling about these people being white. So there may be a race component here as well. That's a civil rights violation. So these guys, I mean, best of luck.
Yeah, and the Attorney General coming out and saying the full force of the DOJ is behind those, holding them to account. Kelly's absolutely right. That was frightening. That was absolute intimidation. And they were also shouting, you know, sort of vile things like, you're wearing nice jewelry and how do you care about this? The purpose of that was nothing loving, nothing peaceful, just to go back to the mayor's comments, because it is so patently unacceptable that that house of worship was obliterated. But the good news is, as Christians, we know that church is church no matter what. Church is the community, and where two or more are gathered, Jesus is there. So aside from the brick and mortar, we know Jesus was worshipped that day. But unfortunately, for those rioters, not protesters, they will see the face of the law of what happens in this country when they violate that.
Come on, you got me fired up. You got me preaching today.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's absurd, especially you think about on MLK Day. We have MLK who we have believers worshiping God, and they would go from their churches, and they would go and they would brave the streets. Well, now we have the exact opposite. We have these cowards coming off the streets, bullying believers in their churches. It's the exact opposite, and to do this on a time like this, I mean, it's absurd. I think that the pastor handled himself very well with all these attacks and everything. Yeah. The only thing I will say is that our churches, the security teams have to be able to step up in these scenarios. I mean, the idea that these protesters are going to come walk in the house of God and start harassing people, they harass teenagers. I saw this one report where moms are trying to buckle their kids into the car to escape, and they're going up to them, yelling at them as they're getting in the car.
Wow.
And it's had the nerve to call this justice. I mean, they have such a distorted view on what justice really is. And anyway, so I hope that some of the security teams get a hold of this. I'll say, at my church in Georgia, about half the congregation is packing. You don't want to bring that up in Georgia. But we have to have some more teams there to make sure that people are safe, because this was absurd. Yeah.
And what made me particularly disheartened looking at this, too, was just the showmanship of it. The cell phones that were out and shoved in people's faces as those rioters were shouting such vile things, that it was clearly for their viral moment, for their dopamine hit, without any appreciation whatsoever for the reverence display. Could you imagine if something even close to that had happened at a mosque? Or had happened anywhere else. Right. Could you imagine if something... So I think the double standard in the quiet mainstream media today about that, I see zero outrage, I see zero alignment or I stand with for any of those individuals that were simply there worshiping.
Well, speaking of the mainstream media, one former member of the mainstream media, Don Lemon, was actually there, and he tried to do this interview with the pastor who was there. So, well, first of all, they were looking for a different pastor. Can you imagine if they would have found him? What would they have done when you see what they were doing with people who they weren't specifically looking for? But back to Don Lemon. He did an interview with the pastor, right? And one of the questions he asked was, did you try to talk to them? As if the pastor is the one who, as if the onus is on him to try to have a conversation with people who came in and just obliterated this service that people were trying to participate in. And he didn't directly condemn the pastor, but in the framing of his questions, reporters know exactly what they're doing. And that's what he was and considers himself still to this day. And I found that question very troubling.
By the way, working with ICE, the accusations, the allegations of complying with the law, you mean? Of helping get off the streets child rapists and murderers and the like, or simply following the law? Are we now going to storm every church violating the law because you are arguing the pastor's following the law?
They're not concerned about other victims. They're too busy trying to make other people victims. I mean, I've seen some of what you're talking about with the teenagers and parents trying to get... There are children, and you'll see this too. Look at their little faces inside that church.
Yeah.
They're terrified. I mean, there are cameras everywhere. So here, I have two hopes, actually. One, artificial intelligence can tell us how many of those people have been going to some of the other sites of, just like they did with Renee Good. Have they been showing up and showing up and showing up? We have to start to go after the people who are pushing this from behind with their dollars and their command and control organization. We need to start doing that. I know the Justice Department is looking at it, but it's just a second before this looks like the late 1950s when they were attacking churches. And anything can happen. Some of these people, if they're some of the same ones in these other crowds, they've got fireworks on them. I mean, we saw churches burned down. It is MLK Day, for goodness sakes. And they do this on the eve? They go after a church? They were burning down churches in this country. What in the actual are these people doing? And this is not okay any day of the year, but not today.
Absolutely.
We are praying for that congregation and for that church. May they worship unimpeded and know that you have the support and are covered in prayer by all of us here. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.